Story time. So this was inspired by a comment that said that perhaps quitting cold turkey isn't the best path for me, and that perhaps tapering off would be kinder on myself. And that is something that has been brought up a couple of times, not just from peers and concerned friends, but also from AOD and mental health staff. And so I guess I wanted to do another video where I talk about my history with the substance. I'm trying not to use direct language because I don't want it to be flagged up on YouTube. So, but we know what I'm talking about. It's yeah. So anyway, it's never been an issue for me. I first tried it when I was 17. Actually, Alex was the first person that I tried it with. It didn't really do much. The first time I tried it, so I didn't think it worked on me. The second time, I had a few drags of a joint and I was giggly as shit through dance for the next 2 hours. It's a pretty funny story if ever you want me to tell it, but so anyway, my relationship with it was always incredibly casual. Like at most, maybe I would do it, say like, and when I say do it, I mean like smoke it in a joint, for maybe max 3 times in a week. Because usually by the third time, I won't get the like giggles and the high bit. I'll just go straight to being stoned, and I didn't like being stoned. I didn't like it, and we've since spoken about it. I've explored it with different psychologists, and I think we think that what it was like, that's my history of it, of using when I was in Sydney, and that was my relationship with the drug in Sydney. So, and the number of times I'd use, say then, over the course of a year would average out to like once a month. So I might have like a week where it's in my life where I'm, doing it every couple of days with a friend or whatever. But then it'd be months before it would come up into my circle again. I never went looking for it, or I wouldn't say never. Maybe if my parents were away or something like that, and there was the odd weekend where we'd be like, maybe we should like smoke a joint and watch like a kid's movie and just laugh our heads off, right? Just purely recreational shit sort of stuff. I even remember like one time I bought a 50, because I didn't have any connections in Ballarat. I bought a 50 in Sydney because I was catching the bus down. I wasn't flying, so I was like, oh cool, so I can smuggle it. And my sister and I had that in the house for almost a year. So it was a really casual recreational relationship that I had with the plant. And ideally, like in my ideal goal is to get back to that level of relationship where I'm not looking for it, but if it happens to be around where I am, I'm not going to feel completely threatened by it. It's not going to take over my life again. I can, have a couple of drags, get a bit giddy, and a bit giggly, and then, move on with my life again. That's ideally where I'd like to be. So that's early history. And then when I was in Scotland, when I was in Scotland is really where a lot of my mental health unraveled. And I guess a theory or explanation around that is because I'd kind of entered remission regarding borderline, because I'd moved away from my parents, which were a massive trigger. And through living with my sister, we would fight a lot, but a lot of the fights were about living according to mum and dad's values versus what we value, and trying to really like shape who we wanted to be compared to who they were telling us that we needed to be, and everything. And so I genuinely feel like a lot of amazing growth happened when Erica and I lived together down here, away from mum and dad. We were able to start to figure out ourselves, because even now, like when mum and dad come down, they are very like, I don't get treated like a 30-year-old adult. I think I will always be a child to them. And that might be the case because I'm always still needing their help financially or whatever. I'm just, it's a complex, I don't know, relationship. Anyway, so like a lot of growth happened there, and then even more growth happened when my sister and I stopped living together. And we had this, healthy together but apart relationship. So yeah, and that was probably like, I still see that like the end of being 24 and the start of being 25 was where I was just, I see it as me being at the peak of my life. I completed my degree with flying colors. I had a great support network of friends. I had an awesome housemate. And a great sex life, because I met who I, believe was the love of my life. And then I moved to Scotland, and lots of shit happened. And it was hard. It was not only just, home was never a great place. So it wasn't so much, I was homesick for my friends. I missed being away from my support network, and there was just a lot of shit that went down there. And I'm not built for full-time work. I never worked in hospitality before. Anyway, it was not a good time. And I'm not an alcoholic. I don't say that to put shame on alcoholics. I say that because my father is an alcoholic, and so I hit a point where I have so many drinks and my body actually starts to reject it, and I go silly, or I just start throwing up. Like I can't. Becoming an alcoholic is just not in my makeup at all. But I did start drinking probably like 4 to 6 drinks a night just to wind down, because things would be so like hectic. And I can talk about that in another video. I just really don't have a lot of time. I'm trying to keep things short without rambling too much. But I do remember, and I think back and I wonder if really that's where kind of the seed started to be planted, because there was a very strong, anti-drug policy on site. So I was living where I was working. There was about 50 of us employees in like a building off to the side of the hotel, and we all lived together. And so every night was a party, basically. Some nights bigger than others, but pretty much there would always be people drinking to wind down, because we were all working split shifts and working stupid hours and not being paid anywhere near enough for it. It was anyway. And I remember then me and my girlfriend Poppy were we were daydreaming about taking trips to Amsterdam for a weekend together, and that we'd have to take a long weekend so that we could have a couple of days of like doing drugs, and then a couple of days to recover before we had to come back to work and pretend to be like normal people at the hotel again. And then even because so many of the people that were living there were foreigners. I was the only Australian. There was 2 other Kiwi girls, and the rest were like all Czech and stuff. And there was maybe 2 Scottish people. One was my friend Jordan, who definitely was not going to get us any drugs. And the other one was Paolo, who, knew some DJs and from this all like nightlife thing in Edinburgh. So we were always like, Paolo, come on, like we won't tell anyone. It's just for us. We just want to have something to giggle over. Just something to giggle over. And even when I came back to Australia, and I came back to Ballarat and found by accident people that had pot, I would be like, oh yeah, come over and, you know, we can smoke and we can, you know, I'll make you dinner and we can, you know, whatever. So I guess I was looking for people, sort of. And then I started seeing this guy called Blake. Same Blake that I mentioned this morning that started messaging me. Blake and I met when I first started at uni here in Mount Helen. He was my friend Stacey's boyfriend at the time, and I fucking hated him. I didn't hate him, but I just didn't care for him. He was a nihilist, and I don't know, just there for a jerk, really. Like, I don't get nihilism. I mean, I get it as a concept. I can't adopt it as a principle for myself. I just can't do it. It seems like a really bleak way to look at the world, and I wouldn't see the point in carrying on if that's how I viewed it. So I didn't really care much for him or his opinion or anything. And like my first semester was his fifth semester. So, we had a couple of classes together when I first started. Then he and Stacey broke up and she moved to Adelaide. And so, I mean, I stopped building my timetable around her, and I certainly wasn't going to make a timetable with him. So we fell out of contact, I guess, for quite some time. And then he moved to Laos for a couple of years and then came back this completely changed person, because he's discovered Buddhism and is now a Marxist, which appeals to my socialistic ideations. So, look, we had a lot in common, but it turns out that he is now also a pothead. And he is quite a functioning pothead, where he can just go to work and function really, really well, and then go home and smoke all night, smoke from like pretty much 5 till 8, where then he goes to sleep, and then he wakes up at 5 and then starts his whole day again. He's really good at, not smoking until he needs to and things like that. And I guess the way that he's managed to do all of that, is that when he was in Laos, and discovering Buddhism, he learnt meditation. And so that's how what I struggle with is the up and down emotions. And then that's what sends me back to using pot again, because I'm like, I can't manage my emotions. I need this substance to calm me down. Because he's so ace at, I say it like that because my sister's like, fuck, Blake's a wanker. Anyway, because he's so ace at meditating, he is able to sort of like recognize these emotions like a rising in him, and he can like let it kind of pass. So he's kind of got the whole thing down pat, and I let him, I guess, color the way that I viewed things too. I mean, drugs are bad. It's not all South Park, and it's not all what we think about it. But at the same time, I don't think we can just sit there and say pot's completely safe and all this other stuff. Because I'm kind of sick of it. Oh, it's not the fact that you smoke cannabis that it's the problem. It's the fact that you mix it with nicotine. That's what makes it so addictive. And like, I just get told all of this fucking shit. Okay. Sorry. But yeah. So anyway, so I started hanging out with Blake. At the beginning, we're only seeing each other once a week. I remember it was a Friday night. We used to see each other on a Friday night because on a Saturday I'd have to open the studio to do 3 hours of training. And I remember the first time I went to do that, and I didn't realize how fucked my body would be because I had never smoked so much pot the night before in my life. And my girlfriend Jana was like, "What's wrong with you? You have no strength." And I'm like, I don't know. I was hanging out with Blake, and I explained it all to her. And it was fine though. Like, and well, it seemed fine. Because then I got over it. I didn't have any physical hooks. So the physical hooks came into play probably about 6 months later, when by that point Blake and I liked each other a little bit more, which meant I was allowed to be over there more. So by 6 months later, Friday night, I would go and see him after work. We would spend the night together smoking, and then I would get up early on a Saturday. Saturday morning is when he and his housemate would do all the chores. So they'd go out and do gardening, they'd go out and do their grocery shopping for the week, and then the rest of the weekend can be written off. And so while I would go and do training and open the studio and everything like that, he would get his chores out of the way, and then we'd be able to come back together again after lunch on a Saturday, and then just spend the rest of the weekend together, just going for gold. And then I'd go home. Oh, and then I'd usually leave him on a Sunday. And then I'd go and hang out with my girlfriend Mika. And on a Sunday, Mika would just be coming down because she was working as a stripper in Geelong, and she would be bumping on Friday and Saturday nights. And so Sundays were just about lying around and smoking pot to manage to come down. And yeah, and so then that was my Sundays. And then because Blake and I really liked each other, I was also allowed to come over one night during the week. So there we have 4 nights a week of me smoking. So that's where the physical hook came into my body. And so even when I stopped seeing Blake and I started seeing Andre, who lived next door to Adrian, like I've always constantly then had access to cannabis in my life. Again, didn't think there was a problem with it. Believed it was it's good for you, not necessarily good for you, but I didn't see a problem with it. I didn't see the link between my erratic moods and the pot. I thought it was me. I was just like, oh, I'm not coping with shit. It was also the same time that I was also kind of coming off Effexor. So all of a sudden, as these triggers are coming back up and I didn't know how to manage my emotions, I was smoking more pot to try and manage that, which was making me more crazy. Like, it was just this whole thing. So yeah, Blake and I started seeing each other mid 2015 when I was 26 years old. This is how long this has kind of been going for. So 26 is where I guess there was that sort of that start of that mental seed was when I was 25. 26 is where the physical hooks came into play. When I was 27, that was the year that I was a sponsored athlete. I was only working at Physipol pretty much. I lost my job at the printing place, but I was like a full-blown stoner by then. Like I was smoking first thing in the morning, driving, going to work, working for a couple of hours, going home during my lunch break, having a bit more of a smoke, lying down for 15 minutes because I'd smoked too much, then driving back to work, fucking around for the afternoon. And then whether or not I smoked in the afternoon depended on if I had pole or not. And it became this thing. Anyway. So yeah, when I was 27 was the year that things were really, really bad with usage and stuff. And towards the end of the year, I guess I started to recognize that it wasn't good. I think that's kind of where I started to try to detox. And I had a girlfriend, Talia, who lived in Melbourne, and I used to go and she'd put me up for a weekend, and I'd be getting the sweats and shit in her bed, her daughter's bed. I don't know. So I guess I obviously started to recognize that it wasn't doing me any favors by the end of that year. So I'm really lucky that really I was only a full-blown user for a year, and I already started to recognize that it wasn't helping me. And basically ever since like the end of 2016, I have been actively trying to get off this drug. And we've tried a number of different things, tapering off. You know, I've gone to rehab. I've been, you know, I've done my 28 days in a hospital. I've done so many different things and so many different things that I'm trying to do. And I guess what I feel works best for me is cold turkey. And that's because I just have this all or nothing relationship with the drug. I can't stop. I don't have an off switch really, unless I green out, or need to go to sleep, or the mixed bowl's empty and I can't be bothered chopping anymore. Like literally those are the only things that make me stop. Otherwise I don't have a stop button. So, because even my drug dealer has been saying to me, like, you know, you're putting yourself through so much stress trying this back and forth thing. Like, why don't you, try tapering off? I don't have the awareness to count each time that I'm smoking to know how much I'm doing. How much I smoke in a day depends on what strain the drug is, like, you know, what strain the plant is, how concentrated it is, what my emotional state is before I start smoking. If I'm starting from a pretty neutral place and then using, I don't need to use anywhere near as much as if I'm coming from a heightened place and then I need to come down to normal and then go down to, you know, so it changes. It's so sporadic. And frankly, the tapering off for me, I feel, just prolongs the withdrawal symptoms. It will make it a longer number of shitty nights sleep. It will make it a longer number of anxious days and this, that, and whatever. Whereas I know from the last 3.5 years of on and off trying to get off this drug that, you know, I mean, yes, I have Valium. Valium makes it easier to handle the physical anxieties of it, but even Valium makes the withdrawal a lot longer. The times when I would be down with Talia, and granted that was a few years ago, but I would probably the first 3 days would be the worst. And the first 2 nights of night sweats were the worst, but then I would start to get better. With Valium, it sort of stretches it out a little bit longer. The night sweats don't start until night 2. The peak of emotional distress and everything comes around day 4, day 5, rather than day 3, day 4. So, I mean, I guess I feel like I'm already being gentle on myself because I have the Valium, because I intentionally do not mix Valium with cannabis so that I still have an effect from the Valium. So, that's why I take this all or nothing approach, because I want my body to detox. I want my body to get rid of it. And yes, it is really, really extreme. And I guess I just need to be mindful that for the first week, particularly, my emotions are going to be at 11, you know, and the reason for that as well is not just because I'm detoxing, but also because I've used this substance to run away from so many difficult emotions over the last couple of years. And anyone who's been through any kind of trauma knows that when you do not address that shit at the time, it comes back with like a vengeance, and it just seems so overwhelming. So, I don't know. I'm probably being really hard on myself, but I genuinely believe that this is the best course for me. This is the best chance that I have, and this is what I need to do, because if I can get through the hardest bit, then I can know that I can get through any other bit. Sorry that this has ended up being a really, really long video, but I wanted to start, I mean, there's still so much more that I can talk about, but just as a bit of an idea of the start of how it's come into my life. And that the main point I wanted to say is that, you know, I've spent 4.5 years smoking pot, and 3 of those have been actively trying to get off it, trying so many different combinations of support and pharmaceuticals and this, that, and whatever to try and get me off it. And I'm where I'm at now today with this journey, with the videos and everything, because I genuinely believe that this is giving me the best shot. And while I am slipping overnight, and I mean, and everything, I guess, as I was saying to Rachel on the phone yesterday, as much as I'm aiming to quit cold turkey, but I'm having these slip-ups, it's almost by de facto becoming a bit of a tapering off, because I'm not smoking as much, I'm smoking later, I'm, you know, all these different things. Anyway, long video, I'm sorry about it, but yeah, this is the story of how Mary and I first became friends, I guess, and why we're trying to get rid of her as abruptly as we can.